Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The stories that take the lead in today's edition for Wednesday, 18th September 2024, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Prime Minister Andrew Holness makes history with Ph.D. in law and policy, and one piece of ID now required to open bank account. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has made history as the first sitting Jamaican Prime Minister to earn a Ph.D. in law and policy. Ronaldo Adams of CVM Social Media Buzz has more.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness completed his doctoral studies at Northeastern University, exploring the impact of U.S. gun laws on Jamaican society. He'll formally graduate in June next year. Here are some of your reactions. At Scott Freeney writes, I would love to read his thesis. Congratulations, sir. At KT_record 2K22 shares, and me here I say me I get old, me allow school. Nah man, me I go back to sit down in class. At Sonia Kai comments, setting a good example. You can hold one of the highest titles in the land and still push for more. At Sweetsmar posts, congratulations are in order, but when you find time for study, sir, with this set of people you have to lead. At Miss Anne-Marie Patterson adds, congrats Dr. Holness. To be running a country and find time to pursue higher education at the same time cannot be easy. At Lan_noise says, regardless of political landscape and beliefs, however anyone feels about your administration and policies, congrats to our PM. That is a major achievement. And that's what's trending online today. Continue to share your thoughts with us on X at CVM TV and the CVM_television on Instagram. I'm Ronaldo Adams.
The government of Jamaica revenues exceed target for April to July in keeping with its projections for economic growth this year. Javon Keys of TVJ Business Day reports.
The government earned more money than was budgeted for April to July this year. The Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, gave the update at a press briefing on Friday. EPOC Chairman Keith Duncan says total revenue and grants going to the government were valued at $301 billion for April to July. This was 4.5% or $12.9 billion more than the projected income.
Tax revenues been at $270.8 billion and non-tax revenues at $27.5 billion. Tax revenues actually surpassed budget by $3.7 billion or 1.4% for the review period. This was primarily due to stronger than expected total income and profits, which was $5.5 billion higher than budget. You will recall that at the end of March, income and profits were below budget as corporate income taxes were lower than targeted at the end of March.
The performance was tempered by lower than projected inflows from production and consumption, along with international trade. Mr. Duncan says a key tax linked to tourist arrivals was also behind budget.
Notably, travel tax with inflows of $9.5 billion was $2.1 billion behind target, reflecting slower than projected visitor arrivals. This was, however, positively impacted, that is non-tax revenue, positively impacted by the drawdown of the government of Jamaica insurance policies with the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. So non-tax revenue exceeded budget by $7 billion.
As for government spending,
at $336 billion, $6.2 billion behind budget, but actually $37.1 billion higher than the total spending for April to July 2023. Right, there was lower than projected spending in the recurrent budget. Total recurrent spending was for April to July was $32.4 billion, and this was due to higher program spending and increased wage bill consequent on the public sector compensation.
Capital expenditure, that is, funding for roads and other projects, was behind budget by $986 million, coming in at $19.4 billion. Mr. Duncan was speaking at the Epoch Quarterly press briefing Friday morning.
St. Lucians can now open a bank account with one piece of ID. This revelation came from the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy Antoine, during an outreach mission to St. Lucia last week. Zane Romulus of the DBS News World reports.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has heard the cry of St. Lucia and some people across the currency union about the difficulty in opening bank accounts. Previous requirements for opening a bank account included two forms of identification, typically a government ID, proof of address, usually a utility bill, and proof of employment or income. The ECCB has been working with banks to ease these requirements, which are staple for all banking institutions and credit unions in the sub-region. At a press conference last week, ECCB Governor Timothy Antoine reported progress on this issue.
We've agreed on a simplified due diligence where you require one piece of ID for low risk, one piece of ID, not two, for low risk customers, based on a risk categorization. Similarly, if, for example, you have a young person coming out of school, wants to start a business, still living with their parents, they have no utility bill in their name, they can get a letter from mom or dad or their guardian as proof of address, and they can proceed.
The ECCB is going further and will soon establish by law opening an account as a right.
Every citizen will have a right to have a basic account in their name, and that account will be interest-bearing. The banks will have cause to terminate. We could only terminate for cause. So if there's evidence of money laundering, sanctions busting, then they can close their account. But they have to open their account. This is something we feel strongly and is important for financial.
According to Governor Antoine, banks in the sub-region have started implementing the requirement of one piece of ID. He has encouraged customers to go in with confidence and report to the ECCB if they encounter any issues. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick, in association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
With an increase in initial reports and complaints, the Police Complaints Authority, PCA, of Trinidad and Tobago is scheduling community outreach meetings to educate the public on their rights and how the authority is designed to serve citizens when engaging with the police. TTT News has more.
According to PCA Director David West, the right of citizens to film and photograph the police is a critical check and balance with clear guidelines, and this is one topic that will be discussed at outreach meetings.
So, you see a lot of times where persons are filming interactions, and police officers are saying that you can't film me, turn off the camera. But that's not right. Once you don't obstruct the police officer in the execution of their duty.
With the development of an app and the use of body-worn cams and portable audio recording devices by their investigating officers, the PCA is evolving to ensure that the public can be confident of a rigorous and just investigative process after a complaint is lodged.
It then goes to our legal department to determine whether or not the facts that you have stated fall within our remit. So that is whether it is a criminal offense, a serious disciplinary offense, or corruption. Once it falls within our remit, we then issue a letter to the complainant within 7 days saying your matter falls within the remit or it doesn't fall within our remit. Once that happens, the legal department then transfers the information to our investigators.
The PCA will hold community outreach meetings in Port of Spain, San Fernando, and Tobago in the upcoming months.
Parliament's lower house in Antigua and Barbuda has passed legislation which will impose a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew on minors. It is contained in the Small Charges Amendment Bill 2024, aimed at protecting the nation's youth and holding their parents and guardians accountable. ABS's Shanakisha Francis reports.
Lawmakers have introduced legislation aimed at addressing the problem of children loitering in public spaces. The proposed law, which has sparked national debate, seeks to establish stricter guidelines on unsupervised minors in public areas and increase penalties for parents or guardians who fail to monitor their children's activities. Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown argued that child loitering is a growing concern.
Youth delinquency is on the rise throughout the Caribbean region, and many of the acts of crime and violence that are committed within the region are committed by our youth. As a consequence, we now have a situation in which crime and violence is a public health epidemic within the Caribbean region.
The legislation was also amended to include penalties for operators of nightclubs, bars, and fetes who allow minors to loiter at their establishments.
An owner, operator, or person who controls a nightclub, bar, or fete operator, or any other similar place shall not permit a person who is under the age of 18 years to loiter in any club, bar, fete, or similar place between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. A person who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000.
Leader of the opposition, Honorable Jamal Pringle, says the government should also examine the age of consent to bring it in line with this legislation.
It's about curbing some of these things. Let us look at the age of consent as well. The Prime Minister would have mentioned that men are preying on underage girls. And I believe it's necessary if we're going to be mature about the situation.
The legislation is aimed at discouraging the practice of children loitering and requiring them to be accompanied by a parent between the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It also seeks to discourage loitering or congregating on the streets or any public place between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Shanakisha Francis, ABS News.
The remains of the late Sir Sridhar Ramphal, affectionately known as Sonny, were honored with a state funeral on Saturday in Georgetown. A legendary figure in the Caribbean and internationally, his contributions were commemorated in a fitting tribute. More from HGP's Tiana Cole.
At a national funeral service on Saturday, the ashes of Sir Sridhar Ramphal was buried with those of other Guyanese heroes at the 7 Ponds in the Botanical Gardens in his beloved homeland, Guyana. His passing on August 30th, 2024, at the age of 95, marked the close of an era. President Irfan Ali, in an emotional tribute to Sir Sridhar, highlighted the crucial role he played in preserving Guyana's territorial sovereignty, especially his leadership during the long-running border conflict with Venezuela.
His life and legacy stand as a testimonial not only to his brilliance as a legal eagle, statesman and diplomat, but also to his undeniable dedication to the land of his birth.
Despite spending most of his time outside of Guyana, Ali claimed that Ramphal's love for his country had always been important to him. He played a key role in establishing Guyana's legal system, safeguarding our nation's border, and enhancing Guyana's standing abroad. He was deemed one of the country's architects of our independent constitution.
He was instrumental in fashioning a document that would serve as a blueprint for our young nation. His role in helping to craft this crucial document cannot be overstated.
Former Prime Minister of Jamaica Percival James Patterson, being one of Sir Sridhar's good friends, in paying tribute, said Sir Sridhar's legacy highlighted his advocacy in the roles he played in different countries globally.
It is incontrovertible, as we proclaim today, there is no one who has made a more enduring contribution to the evolution and catalytic force of the modern Commonwealth than this avatar, Sridath Ramphal.
Throughout his 95 years, Sir Ramphal achieved numerous international milestones while remaining a steadfast advocate for diplomacy, justice, unity, and racial equity among nations. His dedication earned him Ghana's highest award, Order of Excellence. As the second Commonwealth Secretary General, Sir Ramphal was instrumental in defining the Commonwealth's core values and leading international efforts against apartheid in South Africa and supporting Zimbabwe's liberation. At the United Nations, the Non-Aligned Movement, or any international forum, he consistently ensured the Caribbean's respect in its quest for an equitable global system. Meanwhile, among those present were Prime Minister of Grenada and the Chair of CARICOM, Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Sir Ronald Saunders, Antigua and Barbuda's ambassador to the United States and the OAS, and also son-in-law of Sir Sridath, while leader of the opposition Aubrey Norton delivered a video tribute. Tianoko reporting for the HGP Night 3 News.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.